Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Season 7 of Stand Up and Stand Out. Párate y desdécate. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Nikki Green. As a life and business resiliency expert, I thought we would share some stories of resilience this season. It's also the 1-year anniversary of Chameleon Mindset, my best-selling book, and we are giving away a bunch of great prizes and deep discounts on my coaching programs to celebrate. Be sure to check the show notes of each episode to learn more and follow me on social media. I hope you're enjoying Season 7, and I look forward to hearing your feedback and comments on the fascinating topics we're going to cover with each guest. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are and when you're listening to this. Welcome everybody to Stand Up and Stand Out. Today I have another amazing guest for you guys to meet. It's Maartje. With over 2 decades in the oil and gas industry, excelling in projects, change and crisis management, her notable achievements include transforming a global hub, significantly benefiting her company, balancing an international high-pressure career and motherhood. She personifies resilience and adaptability. You guys know why she's on the show today, right? Since 2019, she has thrived as an executive consultant, coach, and speaker. She specializes in guiding individuals and organizations through chaos, with notable contributions during the COVID crisis and rescuing a hydrogen fuel cell startup. In New Orleans, she owns the Shrunk 3D franchise and is very active, a volunteer in the community. Hi, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to talking to you today.
So, you've done a lot of amazing things. You've had an incredible career, not just here in the States, but also abroad. So why don't you share a little bit with your audience, who you are, what you do, and how you personify resilience?
Okay. Well, what I'm excited to talk to you about is what I'm currently offering and doing. So I call myself the chaos commander, or I help people structure chaos. By that, I mean, chaos is defined as behavior so unpredictable it appears random, right? And or a situation that's very sensitive to external influences. So what I do is help people who are on the move. There's clearly energy there, but who feel like things are getting derailed all the time by the smallest things. And that can be unexpected events or even planned events, and hence lose focus and forward momentum towards their goals. And I offer that in the corporate setting. And then it's indeed more related to unexpected events or business turmoil. I also work largely with women, but also sometimes with men in the situation. So women who do want it all, and where chaos then comes in is if there's chaos around how you've tried to balance and structure that life that you have and where everything needs to fit in, and that balance is so feeble that every little thing makes you feel as if you fall off track or need to reassess and change again. That's not a sustainable situation, right? So that's what I mean with structuring chaos. That's the help and offer that I have.
That's beautiful. And definitely during my time in corporate, there was a lot of chaos. As much as people wanted to say, oh, we do planning and, we have all these project timelines, stuff would just happen, unexpected events. And for most of us, recently that was COVID. But even before that, I did a lot of risk management throughout my career, just trying to keep projects on track because, technology would change, a new competitor would come into the market. And I'm sure you saw a lot of that in the industries that you supported. So tell me a little bit about how, your career came about to be focusing on controlling chaos.
Yeah. So I didn't really have a significant career plan other than from age 12, I had decided that I wanted this international career, right? And so when it came time to pick a studies, I was a beta kid. So I decided to choose engineering because that's problem solving. And I did know I liked that. And if you study engineering, you can postpone the decision of what you're going to be when you grow up for another little while, right? Because you have quite a lot of choice with an engineering degree or a master's. And that's where my choice kind of stopped. And then I got hired or my thinking stopped. I got hired by the company where I did my graduation project. And then I had met this guy who was working in a different country than I was. And the only place I could go, it was the corporation I worked for at headquarters in a place where I didn't want to spend the rest of my life. So I figured, okay, I'll try with a big Dutch multinational that sends people everywhere. And then I stand a better chance of actually also being able to work in the same place as this guy I met. And so I got hired as international staff by an oil major and achieved my target by the minute I was hired, because that's the point where I got to have a career everywhere. So I hadn't really planned all that specifically in terms of what the type of work was that I wanted to do. And for the longest time, I tried to live by the rules. Big corporations have these career ladders, so it's very prescribed careers and things you wanted to do. And I tried to color in between the lines to kind of find out the hard way that that's not me. That what I'm actually really good at is coloring between outside the lines and making those connections. That makes you an odd duck out in a big company like that. But once I gave into that, and of course there is moments and key changes that led to that. But once I really committed to swimming in between the lanes rather than in the lane, I became very successful at what I did. And I started to come home with more energy than when I left with, right? I just got energized by my job. I was having success and realized that that's where I was supposed to operate. As you progress in major companies, that there's not always positions like that. And I think what I wanted and what my employer wanted with me started to diverge. So we left on good terms, or split paths on good terms. And I decided to continue what I love doing, which is swim between the lanes or color outside the lines and help make people make these connections and teams and organizations that they don't always see themselves, but that are needed to structure the chaos and find back the focused energy, right? Because most places I come into are operating and are working and people are spending great amounts of time and hours. It's just not quite all going in a direction that renders results.
Well, and that's so difficult because especially in big companies, and all the companies I worked for were, thousands and thousands of people. One of them had 130,000 people. So, trying to keep the train on the track all the time and over control what's happening. And again, it's a company full of engineers. So their idea is that, it's always going to go according to plan. And that's just not realistic. And I can see that you're probably providing a ton of value as you're consulting with these companies, because they've probably experienced more chaos in the last few years than, maybe in the entire company history. And just so many things. It's, unpredictable things at that. You can do some level of risk management and kind of know that, maybe a natural disaster or something is going to happen, but it would be localized. And in a global company, it was always, okay, well, we'll fall over to this other country or someone else will take over the work. But no one ever envisioned that something that happened to the entire globe at the same time, that we would all be impacted. And there was kind of nobody, left to kind of hold the bag. So I can see you probably have some really interesting scenarios as people continue to plan and things continue to evolve and technology is continuing to disrupt.
Yeah. And I think the trick is that you can't try to control it, right? But I think if you learn to, so I love that you talk about risk management, which is definitely elements of what I call more strategic risk management, because people have very varying definitions of risk management. Strategic risk management I define it as the risk that stop you from achieving your goal, right? So that's not necessarily safety risks or per se. It could be all sorts of risks. And then I do a lot of stuff around decision making, because I think that's where the value sits. If you learn to make quality decisions and you remember why you wanted to make the decision and you actually work through consciously and unconsciously the trajectory, then you're not thrown out of whack every time something else happens. So if something happens that fundamentally makes the decision you make either no longer valid or it needs tweaking, then you'll also know. So you'll know to take it on board. But if there's other influences, instead of thinking, oh, did I pick the right thing? If you calm down and then think about it, you can work again through your reasoning and say, no, we thought about this, or we thought about something similar and we said we still were going to go left. So I'm still going to go left, right? And it's much easier to stay on course and keep some focus. So I think risk management and some decision management or decision-making fundamentals teach you skills to deal with, the fact that the earth seems to be spinning faster around its axis and is not going to stop doing that anytime soon, no?
Yeah, definitely not. Well, and I saw a lot of that. Actually, I was just commenting on an article where they were saying it seems like, companies don't have as clear of a direction and accountability anymore. And that's where I got very frustrated is, the company I last worked for had 42 top initiatives. No matter how big your company is, 42 is a lot of things for people to. And it's exactly what you said. It's not decision making. No one really made a decision as to we're going to do these 5 things and we're going to do them really well. It was sort of just like, well, everybody gets a vote and everybody picks their pet project and then nothing really moves forward. So I really like that you're bringing that back into these environments because I think it's needed now more than ever that we really do pick a direction and just try to stay on course. And just course correct a little bit, as we need to, rather than completely, like you said, going the other direction. Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki Green, and I am a life and business resiliency expert. I have been helping people for over 2 decades overcome their challenges and achieve their life and business goals. I wrote Chameleon Mindset for others seeking clarity while acclimating to new situations. This entertaining yet research-based guide to transitions will open your mind to unique strategies for finding purpose and achieving your goals. Through my new book, you will create the happy life you desire with 5 philosophies for change, beginning with C for creative adaptability. Move from resistance to resilience by assessing and adjusting your risk tolerance. The practical lessons in Chameleon Mindset will help you shift your mindset, sharpen your skill set, and overcome the things holding you back from dealing with change. We'll have the new online course coming soon. There are half a dozen modules in total, but the way you choose to pursue your destiny, it's up to you. Each module can be done independently or repeated as necessary to tackle new obstacles and new goals in your life. And you can earn extra Chameleon coins for uncovering them. What are Chameleon coins, you might ask? These are reward XP that you can earn to purchase additional Chameleon Mindset benefits as you progress through the course. You can get swag, group coaching, one-on-one coaching, exclusive event tickets, and networking opportunities. And if you collect enough coins, you can even earn a full-day VIP intensive with me to work solely on your goals. And by joining the Chameleon crew, you will also gain access to my network of thousands of influential people around the world with expertise to help you on your business, your personal endeavors, health and fitness, and so much more. Reserve a copy today and click below to be added to our subscriber list.
Oh, and it's exactly that, right? So many people I meet are afraid to make decisions because then they're like, well, what if I get it wrong? And I'm a great believer in that forward momentum in roughly the right direction is worth so much more than movement in 17 directions that are not that are too much in conflict with each other, right? Because that doesn't really tend to get you somewhere. And I think if you do quality decision making and you implement, and then it's not a complex or elaborate thing, but I think if you have some discipline in that, and then you find out that the course is not entirely correct, you can course correct, and you tend to have a much lesser kind of complete reversal and start again. It's often more a course correction or a course fine tuning because of, progressive insight. It's not always other changes. You learn as you go along, right? And there is no way of knowing it all, but making the best decision with what you have available to you at the time, I believe is worth so much more than not making the decisions.
Yeah, it sounds like you work a lot in the realm of, fear and emotional intelligence, because I think that's where I see a lot of leaders, making decisions right now out of fear that they're going to get, in trouble or that they didn't make the right decision, fear of retribution, from senior managers. But also emotional intelligence where they're making gut choices of just like, well, I don't want to, or I don't like that, or I don't feel good, and again, fear of other people's reactions rather than having confidence in themselves and their ability and their team for giving them the right information to make those good decisions and move forward. So I can only imagine some of those interesting conversations you have in those conference rooms.
And I think that is something where I think if you work with corporations, there is inevitably the element of personal development too, right? And usually people with more life experience good or bad, right, are more willing to take some of these decisions. And I talk a lot in the work I do. So step one is about how do you in the moment, right? In the moment that everything happens, you cannot implement anything. You just need to calm down enough and get out of the moment and get to a place where there's time and energy to actually look at something, right? And I think in that, it's important for people to realize that again, taking a step, look around you. If nobody is else moving, maybe it has to be you, right? And maybe you're not the best placed person from a knowledge perspective or in the hierarchy of roles and responsibilities. It shouldn't be you. But if you, in that moment in time, have the energy and capacity and can come up with a step and start moving, and then, the action is reaction. I wholeheartedly believe in that. If you then start moving, people will start to follow. And then they also are calm enough and start to see where you're going. They'll start offering their help, their suggestions, start to engage their expertise. And then if you start moving forward, you start learning things, right? You get information, you get insights, and they will help you make a better decision. So I think it's about remembering that it can be you. And you might not have to lead the whole thing, but it might have to be you who takes the first step.
I agree. And I think our careers are probably similar, as I was very much out of the box coloring all over the place with lots of colors. And, it did rub people the wrong way sometimes because they wanted a very step one, step two, and kind of person inside the box. But I also found it gave me a lot of freedom to go against the grain, to make bigger decisions, to really, do things above my pay grade, and just go ahead and lead and take on projects that were probably, things that people were afraid of or didn't want to do because they were hard or challenging or complicated. But those are the times where I learned the most myself, about my capabilities, but also moved things forward. It takes those big, bold steps sometimes. And sometimes they may be bold, but small. It's just raising your hand and really taking the lead on things. So I'm glad you're giving people the confidence and the courage to go do more of those types of things, because I think it's what's necessary in the work environment. So the consulting that you do, it's called the Chaos Games, Mastering the Unpredictable in Business. I just love the name. So maybe talk a little bit about kind of what type of companies that you work with and, how you work with them, in these situations.
Yeah. So historically, coming out of oil and gas, I've worked with a lot of tech companies, or companies with complex organizational setups. So in several locations or across international lines, or with different entities with extremely different cultures who need to collaborate together. It could also be specific set of collaborations to offer something. And then because I keep moving around, at some point I found myself in a new city in Pittsburgh, actually, just before COVID started. And I was supporting at the time a local nonprofit as a volunteer to help redefine some programs and projects. So when COVID hit, I stuck up my hand and say, hey, what can I do? And I actually ended up working in the COVID response for almost 2 years with 211, which is a national crisis line, but organized relatively local. The one there was huge and responsible for the whole COVID response, but was also going through a technology transformation. And so they had they were trying to get to a bigger and better place, but we're a small operation with 24/7 operations. And suddenly the call volume went like nuts. And every week there was new government programs that they had to sell to people or explain to people so they could apply for them. That's not what they were used to dealing with, right? New programs every week, and programs that were defined so quickly that in order to explain to people whether they qualified them or whether it was for them, we had to go back and forth a few times to say, okay, did you think about this? We're now starting to questions about this, where this. So to me, that was also a lot of structuring chaos, because it was about, oh, okay, this wasn't dealt with or this wasn't defined. So how are we structure it enough so that the people who need to do the jobs and are the cogs in the wheel to keep this working have the right information to keep it processing, right? So I made the transition to nonprofit too. And lately, I've really enjoyed going from the one-on-one to the more one-to-many. So I help also entrepreneurs in startups and in the innovation space. And because of being a woman in an extremely male-dominated industry, I continue to also always have a parallel offering for my peers. And sometimes it goes a bit wider into programs of companies who want to do female talent retention, or even a broader diversity and inclusion skill program.
I think that's really important. I think I told you when I was in Pittsburgh back in October, speaking at the Women in Engineering conference, it was really amazing, just to see these women and their extensive degrees and backgrounds, and being kind of the one of only, in the country that can do a certain technology and knew about their industry. And still just them constantly having these questions of they're lacking confidence, or needing more support, or again, being the only woman in the room. And so I really love that you're doing those programs in addition, because especially I think in engineering, and I experienced it many times over my career, it's very hard. It's very hard to be heard and to feel represented and to continue to get those chances of advancement when you're in an industry where you are the only woman at the table. So I'm glad you're doing that work. It sounds like really incredible stuff that you're doing. I'm sure you love it. How much do you enjoy your job and all you do?
Yeah, I love my job. I love also, I saw that one of your headlines is our power is our connections. And what I love most about my job, whether I work with individuals or whether I work with corporate clients, is that if I do my job well, everybody goes home happier, right? There is less energy wasted on trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do, or what I'm stressed about, or the anxiety or the unclarity. So if I do my job well, people get to a more peaceful state, and they have energy left to live this glorious life that we all have and do other things. Because I wholeheartedly believe that, work should not be the energy drain. And I hope most people get to like their job at least. It would be great if you love your job, but if liking your job is good enough for you, and then that's also totally fine. But it would be so great if we all have more energy for the things we really like, and can do the things that we don't love so much with less of an energy drain, right?
That's beautiful. Yeah, when I was working, in my corporate job, I had a saying where I wanted to be tired from my weekend, not my work week. And I would try to encourage my employees to do the same, to make sure that, when you do go home to your family and your friends, and doing the things you want to do and spending that energy in a good, positive way, and that you come to work and you're also refreshed because you've had that downtime, you've been able to unplug, and then you can equally, get what you need to out of work, but then also leave it there in the laptop at the end of the day and go back home and again, enjoy your family and your life. And I hope we continue to keep encouraging people to do that like being at work is not the end all be all. And it's great to have a good career and all those things. But at the end of the day, like, no one's going to care how many emails you sent, right? Like, that's not.
What I always found the most frustrating at work, and when I would get the most vocal, is when I felt we were redoing work, right? When it was just work to spin the wheels and evaluating the same 17 scenarios because we weren't making decisions. Or to me, that's disrespectful to employees, because that's work that eventually nobody wants to do, right? So even if you have a very healthy organization where people dynamics or challenging targets and pressures are not draining your energy, you can have the best employer. But if you're then redoing work for the sake of redoing work, or you don't really understand why that continues to need to be redone, that can also be a huge energy drain, right? And it's just not needed.
Oh, I love it. I love the work that you do. And I know you're going to continue helping so many wonderful companies, small, medium, large, you name it, to get better, make better decisions, and be happier doing it. So if people want to work with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yes. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm one of the ones who just has my first name in the profile. So it's easy to find. And there's not many Maartjes. So it should be easy enough to just put my name in. Also, if that's easier for you, And then my website is thechaosgamesspeaker.com. And that's the good starting point to lots of things. I have 2 masterclass series coming up. One is starting early in March, which is more geared towards entrepreneurs. It's around structuring chaos, which is a 3-session series. And then I have a 5-session series starting shortly after that, which is geared to individuals. I tend to attract a lot of women, but I'm certainly also totally open to men who want to join in that, which is about finding peace and fulfillment in the juggling act. Life is always going to be a juggling act, but if you're at peace therein with the choices you've made, it's so much easier on the days that the juggling feels a lot to get through them and, not have that energy drain that we talked about. So those are the upcoming offers, and I have offerings, and I do a decent amount of public speaking too. So you can see also there where I'm gonna be appearing, or links to other interesting conferences potentially if you're interested in the stuff that I do.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we'll be speaking together at some events. We're working on the calendar, so we'll see how the year goes. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, sharing a little bit about yourself. I love hearing your stories of resilience, not just how your career has evolved, but also how you're helping others find their resilience as well. It's been wonderful having you on the show. For those of you that haven't subscribed, make sure to click the button, follow wherever you happen to be on whichever of the fun podcast platforms. And if you'd like to see where Nikki's going to be next, I'm at thenikkigreen360.com, just /events. And you will see where the latest next thing is, in person or virtual. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us today on Stand Up to Stand Out. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Thank you.